Isn't it? Just put YouTube or Hisen already not.
YouTube or Muswan 1 minute.
YouTube to check everything is okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Link to Aquabar Didi Ban YouTube.
Link to
Didian.
ready to group or not? Because I'm not link to this.
Didia.
Apa ni kena? Lagi?
Kalau boleh.
Accept to okay, request accept to.
Akhirnya saya video. কৃতাৰ্থ ষ্টাৰ্ট কৰা নেকি? ষ্টাৰ্ট হ'ব 10টা 10 হ'ল।
Good morning, everyone. Today, I welcome you on behalf of the whole Sipajhar family today on this auspicious day of Teachers' Day to the international webinar. I would like to hand over the situation to Ms. Mirusmita Mahanto for take decision.
Thank you, Kumar Krithartha Kaushik. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, Kumar Krithartha Kaushik. Good morning, everyone. Honorable today's resource person, Professor HIRANYA NATH, respected Principal Sir of Sipajhar College, Dr. Pradip Chandra Deka, and all the faculty members, research scholars, and students from India and abroad. I again welcome you all to this webinar organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Sipajhar College, in collaboration with Zoology Department. And on this auspicious occasion of Teachers' Day, I wish you all a very happy Teachers' Day through this virtual meet. Thank you for being with us. Now, we will move towards the next agenda of this webinar. And with this, I would like to request our Principal Sir, Dr. Pradip Chandra Deka, for delivering his inaugural speech to grace this webinar. Sir, over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Smita. Good morning, friends, and happy Teachers' Day to all of you. Honorable Speaker and respected participants, I am very pleased to take the advantage to inaugurate today's international webinar on the evolving art of teaching organized by IQAC in collaboration with the Department of Zoology, Sipajhar College. Dear friends, we are very happy to have the eminent scholar, Professor HIRANYA NATH, Department of Economics, Sam Houston State University, USA, as the speaker. I feel so proud to say that Professor Nath is closely related with our college as he was born in Darong district of Assam, which is also our home district. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of Sipajhar College team. Dear friends, we are always saying that teaching is an art, not just reading from a book and reproducing in the classroom. Teaching as an art exhibits ways in which the teacher uses creative ways to teach the students, and so the students find it to be fun and interesting to learn. For using the artistic methodology to teach the students, we must know the subjects and research the material well before we begin to teach. As a teacher, we need to determine the methods and strategies that work for all of us, and I hope that we need to determine the as I hope that our resource person, Professor Nath, will discuss the topic elaborately. Surely, it will create a good environment for teaching and learning process. And I hope that the webinar will be a meaningful, thought-provoking, and useful to all the participants. With these few words, I would like to declare that today's webinar is inaugurated for discussion, and I hope that with your active participation and interaction, it will be a very successful one. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Ms. Smita.
Thank you so much, sir, for your speech. Now, I would like to request Dr. Sultana Razia Madam, Coordinator of IQAC Sipajhar College, for a brief introduction of today's resource person. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Smita Mohanto. Honorable resource person of the webinar, Professor Hiranya Kumar Nath sir, respected Principal Dr. Pradeep Chandra Deka sir, my dear colleagues and respected participants. It is our proud privilege that today we have Professor Hiranya Kumar Nath sir with us, who is a very busy person. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind consent to be the resource person of the webinar organized by IQAC Sipajhar College in collaboration with Department of Zoology, Sipajhar College. Now I am going to introduce Professor Hiranya Kumar Nath sir. Professor Hiranya Kumar Nath is a professor of economics at Sam Houston State University, Huntsville, Texas, USA. He is also an adjunct professor at Tezpur University, Assam, and an academic editor of economics. Professor Nath held visiting position at the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, India, and the Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane, Australia. He also taught at St. Andrews University in Osaka, Japan, and China University of Mining and Technology in Beijing, China. Professor Nath's research interests include macro and monetary economics, information economy, and various issues related to developing and transition economies. Dr. Nath has published in highly regarded peer-reviewed journals like Applied Economics, California Management Review, Comparative Economic Studies, Economic Analysis and Policy, Economic Record, Economic Letters, Empirical Economics, Information Economics and Policy, Journal of International Trade and Economic Development, Journal of Macroeconomics, Journal of Money, Credit and Banking, Review of Development Economics, and Telecommunications Policy. He earned his PhD in economics from Southern Methodist University, Dallas, USA. Professor Nath attended the University of Delhi for his bachelor's and master's level education in economics. He also earned an MPhil degree in economics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has traveled extensively throughout the world, visiting universities, presenting his research, and teaching students. Professor Nath sir was born in Bornogao, a village near Mongoldoi, and was raised mostly in Khelamara, Sonitpur district. He established the Assam Scholarship at Sam Houston State University to create awareness about Assam. He works with rural communities in Assam to create an enabling environment for individual as well as collective peace and prosperity through Good Neighbor Initiative. So again, thank you, sir, for having you among us today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we can move towards the main attraction of this webinar. That is the primary session by our research person, Professor Nath sir. May I request you, sir, to start your presentation? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smita. Thank you
Thank
so
you, sir.
much. Thank you, Dr. Razia, for a very generous introduction. Honorable Principal Dr. Deka, Dr. Razia, Ms. Mohanto, dear participants. First of all, I would like to congratulate you all and wish you a very happy Teachers' Day. It is a perfect day to talk about teaching. So in my presentation today, what I'm going to do, I actually will not talk about theories about teaching. I will not talk about what people have written about teaching, but I am going to share with you some of the thoughts that I have about teaching. A month ago, I have completed 20 years of my teaching career here in the United States. And over this period, I have taught in the US mostly. I have taught in India. I have taught in China. I have taught in Japan. So whatever realization I have, whatever experience I have, whatever changes I have gone through, however I have thought about teaching, those are the things that I am going to share with you. We may be different in terms of what we teach or at what level we teach. Some of us probably teach at the school level. Some of us teach at the college level. Some of us teach at the university level. Some of us teach economics, some of us teach English, some of us teach zoology, some of us teach mathematics, some of us teach history. But whatever we teach, what exactly we try to do. And that is where I will do a little introspection. And I hope that by the end of this lecture, I will be able to discuss with you, or I'll be able to get your feedback so that we can have a very broad-based discussion. So my first question or my first thought is what exactly we try to do as teachers. So as teachers, I think we try to create an enabling environment, right, where a child, an youth, or an adult develops certain skills. That is one. Second, becomes a lifelong learner. That is second. Third, also contributes to the body of knowledge. And finally, takes an opportunity to bring out the best in her or him. And all these things that person, that child, that youth, that adult does in the pursuit of becoming a valuable member of the society by upholding the basic human values in her or his personal, professional, and social life. So that's what I think about what we do as teachers. So as teachers, we create an enabling environment where a child, an youth, or an adult develop certain skills. They become a lifelong learner, which is very, very important. So as a teacher, to make a student become a lifelong learner is actually a very, very important part of our job, and also contributes to the body of knowledge, right? And that they do in the pursuit of becoming a valuable member. Now, when we think about what we do as teachers, we have to take into account the context in which we try to do what we do, right? And that's why let's talk about a few different contexts which are important for our job. First, I will talk about the socio-cultural context. And again, when we talk about this context, I am interested, or I try to make a point about the changing context. So first, let's talk about the changing socio-cultural context in which we try to teach, or we try to create this environment where a child, an youth, or an adult becomes a valuable member of the society by doing what I already have said. Now, when you talk about socio-cultural context and how this social cultural context has changed, first of all, if you look around the world, and it doesn't matter whether you are talking about India, Assam, or you are talking about the globe in general, we have observed that there have been increasing inequalities and divisions in the society. So if you look at, and again, I'm not talking about just economic inequality, but I am talking about social inequalities. And the social inequalities have led to divisions. Actually, it is very difficult to say whether actually divisions in the society lead to inequalities, or inequalities lead to divisions. So it is very hard to say which causes what, or we probably will not go into this area of cause and effect, right? But then what we observe is that social inequalities have been rising. At the same time, the social divisions have been rising. And that context is very important, or these changes are very important when we try to create this environment for our students, right? Similarly, our social relationships have changed. If you think about what has happened in last 20 years or 25 years in your social relationships with others, right? So then you will realize that there have been a lot of changes. I'm just not talking about the changes that have been brought about by the use of technology, but I am also talking about in a much broader sense, all the changes that have taken place as a result of various different push and pull factors, right? But then if you think about, so if you go a little deeper about social relationships, right? So what exactly determine the social relationships? I believe that there are two very basic things when you talk about any kind of relationships, including social relationship. And those two things are, one is trust and the other is respect, right? So trust and respect, these two things are very important for social relationships. Now, if I ask you, do you think that the trust and respects are the same that they used to be like 20 years back or 25 years back? Well, if you observe very closely, then you will realize that trust and respects have changed in the society. And again, I am nobody to say good or bad about these changes. And we are, I think, very insignificant in the bigger picture, right? To say good or to pass a value judgment. But you will realize that this trust and respect have changed over the years. And as a result, the nature of our social relationships have changed. And social relationships also have become more complicated because as time passes, we also build a very complex society, right? And if you think about 30 years back or 20 years back, of course, our social relations probably were less complicated, right? But now it have become more complicated. It also has expanded in terms of its reach because now we talk about global social relationship, we talk about nationwide social relationships, but earlier it used to be confined to a small geographic area, and that also has changed our sociocultural, that has changed our social relationships. So these changing social relationships are an important part of this sociocultural context within which we try to teach our students, or we try to create this environment where our students can be lifelong learners, they can develop certain skills, or they can contribute to the body of knowledge, right? Similarly, if you look at the society, and some of these changes came to other countries, particularly in the Western countries earlier, but they are coming to our society as well. For example, there are changes in our familial structure. We used to have a joint family system. Now we are moving to all this nuclear family where, well, there are a lot of things that we do on a day-to-day basis, which are very different from we used to do probably 20 years back. And that also gives us a changing context for how we teach or how we create this environment. Okay? And then finally, the changing value system. So when we talk about sociocultural context, it's also about the value system. So even in my lifetime, so when I was in school or I was a college student, the way people in the society used to look at education, and I'm talking about our society in India, right? That value has changed, right? Earlier, it used to be the education itself, or being educated was an end, right? So education was an end in itself. So people would value somebody who is educated in the society. And that is the great thing. So if you have a master's degree or if you have a PhD degree, that is a great thing. And people would not try to look at other things that you are, whether you actually have a job or whether the fact that you are an educated person used to be valued in the society. I'm not saying that that is not valued nowadays, but that has changed significantly in over last 20 to 30 years, I would say. For many parents nowadays, education is a means to an end, right? And therefore, they think of education as an investment. So I'm a student of economics, so I will bring in some of the terms that I use in economics. So for many of the parents, it is more like an investment. So if they invest in their children's education so that in future there will be a return. That return can be in terms of a good paying jobs. And that could also be in terms of power, social power, because in our society, particularly Indian society, power is also very important. And that power can come from money, that power can come from a very high paying job, power can come from various different sources. So that value system has, I would say, or at least my observation is that that has changed. So when I talk to parents nowadays, well, the way they think about their kids or their children's education is different from, for example, the way my parents used to think about education. So these are the changing socio-cultural context within which we have to create this environment where students can become lifelong learner, they can develop certain skills, they can contribute to the body of knowledge, and at the same time, they can take this opportunity to bring out the best in themselves, right? So I will keep repeating what we do as teachers, as I discuss this different context or different changing context in the society. So the next context would be the political context. Now, we cannot avoid politics. You may say that you are not a political person or you don't want to go near a politician, but whether you like it or not, you cannot avoid or you cannot escape politics. And politics, actually, even though we may not like it, or many of us at least may not like it, it is very important for the society. And a healthy political system or politics is very, very important for the greater good of the society. The political system should be such that it articulates a shared vision and that encompasses different aspects of our collective life. And that has changed over the years. So even if you kind of focus on India or in Assam, so if you look at the Indian politics since independence, for example, or Assam politics since independence, that has changed. And with that, also this shared vision has changed. Of course, when it comes to our state of Assam, it's somewhat disappointing that we can hardly say that there is a shared vision now, at least looking at what is happening in the political arena. But that shared vision, and as I said, it changes over time, and that also creates a context, right, against which or within which we try to create this environment for our students. Now, when we talk about the political context, it is very important that we recognize the plurality of the society. I'm not talking about pluralism in the philosophy, but I am talking about plurality of the society and how these pluralities in a democratic society are accommodated. So if you think about how we have evolved in India, so plurality is something which we would like to think that is a strength. And again, I'm not talking about pluralism, I'm talking about plurality, meaning that we have this diversity, we have different languages, different religion, different cultural aspects, different, so all these things, that plurality, right? So ideally it could be strength, but then how we have accommodated in our society has changed over time. And that also kind of creates a context within which we try to create an environment for our students who can become, or we hope that will become, a valuable member of the society. Finally, when we talk about the political context, now the other thing that we'll have to discuss or we'll have to consider is how entrenched this politics in our everyday life is. Can we lead a very simple, peaceful life avoiding politics? Unfortunately, if you look at our day-to-day life, particularly in our part of the country, unfortunately, this politics has become very entrenched in our everyday life. So the politicians or the political parties, they are almost everywhere. We cannot avoid it. So just to give you an example, I cannot go to almost, when I visit Assam, I cannot go to any of the event, be it in a school, be it in a college, without having a politicians around. So that's although I may not like it, or most of the time I actually don't like being around a politician, but that has become part of our life. So politics or politicians or political parties is very much entrenched into our everyday life, whether it is education, whether it is our economic life, whether it is our even personal, professional life. And that also set a tone or set a context for an environment where we try to groom these students to become valuable members of the society. And again, some of these things, some of these changes are not desirable, but at the same time, given what it is, we cannot avoid them. So within that context, how we can create effectively an environment where students can become lifelong learners, they can develop their skills, and they can contribute to the body of knowledge, and they can get this opportunity to bring out the best in themselves to become a valuable member of the society, right? So that's about the political context. Finally, I would also like to talk about the economic context, because economy has been changing very rapidly almost everywhere in the world. And there are some important aspects of these economic changes, which are actually very, very important when it comes to teaching learning environment. First of all, if you look around the world, then you will see that, well, compared to, let's say, 70s or 80s, the economies around the world have been growing faster. They are growing at a higher rate. So yes, most countries around the world, they are more developed, or economically, they are much better than before. But at the same time, unfortunately, economic inequality also has increased over last 20 or 25 years. So on one hand, we have economic prosperity, we have higher income, right? At the same time, we also have higher income inequality. And when it comes to prosperity and inequality, that also, unfortunately, has created an unequal opportunities when it comes to education. Right? So, for example, in the 80s, when I grew up as a kid in a village in Assam, right, the opportunities were equal. I mean, my parents probably were low middle income, but there were a lot of poor families in our village or in our neighborhood. All of us used to go to the same school. But that has changed, unfortunately, even in that particular village or particular place. Now, kids from different economic background, they go to different schools. And that is leading to long-run inequality, not only in their economic life, but in general in their social life, which is unfortunate. You would think that when there is economic growth, there will be a mechanism in the society which will redistribute some of this prosperity in such a way that it will create equal opportunities for everyone, irrespective of whether they are rich or poor, economically upward or backward, right? So that has not happened, and that is worrisome. That is unfortunate. But again, as teachers, that is the reality. We have to create an environment for our students where we will have to make them valuable citizens or valuable members of the society. Now, what society do we talk about, right? Do we talk about a society which is robust, which is for everyone, or we talk about a segmented society? And that's where I think we teachers have a lot of responsibility in kind of creating that environment, right? So in a way, because of those changes, our environment has also changed, what we can do or we cannot do. But at the same time, I think we still have some leverage which we can use in order to give the students an opportunity to kind of think about all these undesirable developments in the society. The second aspect of this economic context is the labor market, the job market, because most students, of course, becoming a good human being is probably the ultimate goal of education, but at the same time, education also prepares these children or this youth for the job market, or for the market, for the world where they will earn a livelihood, whether they will earn their livelihood by working for someone or by working as an independent businessman or independent farmer or independent somebody. That's their choice. But at the same time, they should be, or we should be as teachers, should be aware of this dynamic labor market. So this labor market, when I say labor market, I am referring to this market in a much broader sense. And again, if you don't like the word market, I'm talking about this world or this sphere where people go and earn a livelihood. So that's basically the bigger context, right? And that has changed. And that has changed for various reasons. One reason is, of course, technology. Technology has changed this sphere where people work for livelihood, right? And technology is one, but there are other social factors. There are demographic factors. There are environmental factors which have changed this ecosystem. And so if you think about it, certain jobs that people would normally like to do, they are gone. They are no longer exist. There are new jobs. So, and these jobs are changing, or the livelihood, the occupations that the students can take in order to earn a livelihood have been changing very rapidly, right? And it is earlier, even when I was a kid, probably if you want to become an engineer, and you do it successfully, once you join as an engineer, you will retire as an engineer. Or if you are a bank officer, you will join as a bank employee and you will retire as a bank employee. But those things have changed. Nowadays, this labor market, or this sphere where you find livelihood, is so dynamic that it may so happen that you will be working after 12 years. Your occupation, your job is no longer needed. And as a result, you will have to find a new job. So in this very dynamic, very competitive workplace, what kind of skills as teachers we would encourage students to develop when they're still learning, right? And that's why I say that this aspect of our job, where we kind of create an environment where students become a lifelong learner is very, very important, because they cannot expect that whatever they learn when they are is in college or in university, that will not get them through their entire life. So they will have to keep learning, and those who will keep learning, they will survive. Otherwise, they will not survive. You like it or not, that is the reality of these economic changes or economic context that I have been talking about. And again, as I said, the technology has been used everywhere. The fact that I am now speaking to you from my home in the United States itself is possible because of the technology. So when I came to the United States in 1995, then I used to call my back home once every month. And that is also for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, because it used to be very expensive. The technology was not as available as it is now. But nowadays, during the day, even from the United States, I talk to my ma, my Bonti several times, right? And that has been, and that shows how technology is almost everywhere in our personal life, in our professional life, in our social life. And of course, when it comes to us students looking for job to earn a livelihood, that technology will be there. And then, so that technology they will have to learn technology. They will have to live with technology. And that's very, 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 very important. And again, of course, there are so many theories, and there are some conspiracy theories how technology is something that is created by the capitalist system, and that will essentially kill all these hardworking people and all that. But then if you can also think about technology in a way that people develop technology so that our life is more comfortable, right? So that we don't have to work really hard, which pains us. Because again, those of you who do economics, you know that you actually derive this utility from working, and that's why you have to be compensated, right? So if it is painful to work, then if we can develop certain technology which will do our job, then obviously we'll be much happier because we'll enjoy more labor. So that's kind of the basics of economics, right? But then let's say there is a time when all the wealth in the world, everything is produced by machine and produced by one or two people who have the entrepreneurial talent, like let's say Bill Gates or Ambani or whoever. And then so they create all the wealth in the economy, all in the world, and that is enough to feed everyone in the world. So then the problem for the humanity would be how you redistribute that wealth among this 7 billion or whatever the population of the world, right? So that's something that some of the scholars have been thinking about. So if technology progresses this way, of course, it will not, we probably will not see that situation where only 3 or 4 people will create all the wealth or create everything or produce everything in the world. That probably will not happen because there are a lot of social, political, cultural inertias, and that will slow the process, right? But let's say that happens. So then the challenge for the humanity will be how you redistribute this wealth or all this produce among the people, because these are now owned by Ambani or owned by Bill Gates or owned by Jeff Bezos or whoever has that entrepreneurial talent, right? So that is where some of the scholars have been thinking. So is there a redistribution mechanism? Because the redistribution mechanism we have at this point, which is essentially the government, right? So government basically taxes those people who can pay tax and then use that tax money to provide various goods and services to the people who cannot, right? So that's the redistribution mechanism people have come up with over the years. So for hundreds of years, that's the mechanism they have developed. But as you know, that mechanism doesn't work very efficiently, right? There are a lot of leakages. It doesn't work efficiently. And therefore, what would be the alternative redistribution mechanism in the world through which you can redistribute or distribute this wealth among billions of people in the world, right? And that's where some of the thinkers talk about philanthropy. Now, in the Western world, you see that this philanthropy is a big thing. For example, Bill Gates, he made lots of money in his life, but then he uses his money to solve world's problem. He spends so much money trying to find cure for diseases, trying to take care of the people in Africa or even countries like India. But then in that case, he is the one who will decide where his money will go or where his wealth will go. So people are thinking along those lines, but then there is no clear answer. So what will be the nature or what will be the mechanism of this philanthropy, for example? Now that we kind of hear about all kinds of crowdsourcing, that might be a way to go. For example, nowadays, even in our society, for example, if somebody is in trouble, somebody is in pain, somebody is in crisis, right? So we normally, you put something on the social media, we kind of get some help from small helps, not like Bill Gates, but then small helps, but then we try to solve some people's problems. So again, these are, again, some of the ideas people are thinking about. So if it comes that technology develops so much that nobody has to work, or there will be only few people who will create the wealth, how to redistribute the wealth. But again, I think I'm diverting a little bit from what I exactly was talking about. But this is about, when we talk about this economic context or changing economic context, this the search for a redistribution mechanism is an important one. So what I have said so far is that as teachers, we try to create an environment where a child, an youth, or an adult develops certain skills, becomes a lifelong learner, and contributes to the body of knowledge and takes the opportunity to bring out the best in her or him in the pursuit of becoming a valuable member of the society by upholding human values in her personal, professional, and social life. So that is what we try to do as teachers. And when we try to do that, we have to be aware of all the changing context. And that's where I discuss socioeconomic context, political context, and finally the economic context, right? Now, let's come back to teaching. So what exactly do we do in teaching? So again, as the title says, teaching is an art. So like any other art, so if you are a singer, you practice an art. If you are an artist, painter, then you are an artist, right? So when you are a singer, or if you are an actor, what exactly you try to do? Through your music, you try to evoke an emotion in somebody's mind, right? Similarly, if I consider teaching to be an art, what exactly do I want to do, right? We try to bring out the best in these human children, right? So we try to bring out the talents which are hidden in them. And in order to do that, in order to perfect our art of teaching, what do we have to do? We have to master three things. That is what I think. So we have to master three things. First, we have to be effectively motivate our students. Motivation is first. Secondly, we'll have to be able to communicate to our students. And third, we'll have to inspire our students. So I say MCI, meaning motivate, communicate, inspire. Motivate, communicate, inspire. So if we can master these three things, then we can perfect our art. Motivate, communicate, and inspire. So what is the motivation part? So we'll have to motivate them to learn something, to develop their skills, right? To contribute to the knowledge. So how do we motivate? There is no one way of motivating students. You may be motivating in a different way. I may be motivating in a different way. It's the same way the singers do, musicians do, the actors do, right? So there is no one formula that this is the way you motivate it. Of course, depending on at what level you try to teach, this task become maybe very challenging and difficult. So what do you think? At what level it will be the most difficult to motivate? It will be at the lowest level. For example, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, it will be very difficult to motivate because their mind is all over the places, right? So how will you motivate them? So that's where this motivation is very, very important, or that becomes an art of the disproportionate level for the school teachers who teaches at the primary school or the elementary school, right? As you go up, it becomes a little easier, because if you are teaching at the university, if I'm teaching my master's student or if I'm teaching my doctoral student, I don't have to spend much, or I don't have to be very innovative in motivating my students. I have to do it, particularly motivating to certain, let's say if I am talking to, or if I am teaching a doctoral student, I'll have to motivate him to a particular area of research, but then that is relatively easy because they are already self-motivated through this process. It will be very difficult to motivate a 6 years old or 7 years old, right? As they move on, because so they will be in school, then they will go for science subjects or art subjects or commerce or business administration, and then they become very specialized. They do that because of their interest in those areas, hopefully, right? And that's why it is easier to motivate at the higher level. It is difficult or challenging to motivate. Now, how do you motivate? Again, as I said, it is, and it changes even for me, how I motivate a first-year student and how I motivate a fourth-year student is different. Sometimes even during the day, the way I do it is different. For example, if I teach a morning class at 8 o'clock, and if I teach a class at 11 o'clock or a class at 6 in the evening, the way I try to motivate, and that is like a very specific motivation I'm talking about. I mean, there is a general motivation and then there is a specific motivation. So this motivation is about like teaching class, right? Teaching a topic. At that point, I mean, that can vary. Same class, when I teach in the morning, when I teach in the afternoon or in the evening, the way I motivate them would be different. So that is the motivation part. So you will have to be, in order to effectively teach, you will first have to motivate students. The second is communicating. So I may be knowing a lot of stuff in economics, but how do I communicate effectively with my students? And that is always a challenging thing. And that, I think, at every level, that is always challenging. For example, when I teach my undergraduate students, of course, in a class, there will be students of the different ability or different interest. First of all, ability, and then there are different interests, right? Now, how do I communicate effectively to all the students, all 30 students that I have in my class, who have different abilities, they have different levels of interest, and they probably have different mindset, different attention span. So how do I teach that? How do I communicate what I'm trying to? Let's say I'm trying to explain the market demand or market supply, or I'm trying to explain cost of production. So how do I do that, right? And do I teach the best students in the class, or do I teach the worst students in the class? without losing the best students. So how do I do that? So that's again comes from practice, and that again could vary from class to class or from level to level, right? But doesn't matter what level, it is always a challenging thing. And sometimes it is not your verbal communication. Sometimes you can communicate in many different ways, right? For example, when I first came to the United States, I was in my doctoral classes. I had a teacher who was Japanese. He did not have very good English language skills, so he could not speak English very fluently. But he was an excellent teacher. He could communicate things with all his gestures and with whatever he writes in the board, that he was one of the most effective communicators, at least for me. Okay? So again, it's not just verbal communications. The communication can take place in many different ways. For example, even with my students, although I think I think that I can communicate effectively with my students, but even sometimes they find difficulty with my accent, because of course I don't speak the American accent. Of course, there is no American accent, because even within United States, there are different accents. And I live in Texas, and Texas accent is very different from the Boston accent. It is very different from the Californian accent. So here, although I have lived all 25 years in Texas, I have not been able to acquire that accent. And as a result, some students find it difficult to understand me. But I find a different way to teach them, so that their learning doesn't suffer because of my accent or because of my inadequacy in verbal communications. And again, that inadequacy is not about the language that I speak, but it is about the accent that I use. The third thing is that this is about communication. And the third element that I was talking about is inspire. So as a teacher, if you have to perfect the art of teaching, you will have to be able to inspire your students, inspire to be a lifelong learner, right? So how do you do that? Again, there is no one formula. Different people have different formulas. Now, when you think about all these hundreds of teachers that you have taken a class with, you find some teachers who you still remember, who you remember not only because what they taught you, but also because how they lived their life, right? And that is very inspiring. Sometimes it could be just how you carry yourself, how you speak, or how you dress, or how you lead your life outside the school. So that may also affect, that may inspire your students. And this inspiration part goes beyond the time they take your class. It almost is kind of lifelong. So that inspiration, if you are inspiring somebody, if I'm inspiring somebody, that has a lifelong impact. And again, I don't think that I will inspire someone to dress like myself, but I hope to inspire someone to be a lifelong learner, because being lifelong learner is not only very helpful for surviving in the 21st century job market, but also I think doesn't matter whether it is 21st century or 18th century, being lifelong learner is a very important thing in life. You learn from almost everything. It's not just the class that you took or the books that you read, but you learn. And so some people don't learn, right? So some people don't learn, or they don't probably know how to learn, right? So for us teachers, we have to create this environment where they can become a lifelong learner. They learn how to learn, right? So they learn how to learn. Okay, so that's the third thing. So in this art of teaching, I think there are these three things: MCI, motivate, communicate, and inspire. Now, having said that, now what has been changing over the years? So teaching, at least for me, it has changed. There was a time when I was a student at Talamara High School. We did not have much. In fact, in the lower classes, we did not even have roofs over our head, right? We had very bad, poor quality blackboards where sometimes it's very difficult to read what the teacher is writing. But that has changed even there. I think now Talamara High School is much well equipped for the classes. And so every other institutions that I have been to or I have not been to. For example, I was at Sri Ram College of Commerce in Delhi. And there, when I was a student, there was no air conditioning in the classrooms, but now they are fully air conditioned. So those things have changed. So as a result, during the summertime, it used to be very hot, but nowadays it is probably much more comfortable for the students, and they have a very comfortable learning environment. Physical environment matters, but that doesn't mean that we will kind of overcome all these constraints in one stroke. That will not, but that is where we come in, right? So we have to create an environment, or we have to compensate for those bottlenecks. But again, you believe it or not, even in all the colleges that I have visited in Assam, now they have got smart classrooms, they have got better classrooms or better tools to use in the classroom. So let me kind of give you an example from my own life. So in 2000, when we started teaching, I was like a traditional teacher. I'm still probably a traditional teacher, but back then, by traditional teacher, what I mean is I read the book, I prepare my notes, and I go to the class. Then I will explain the concepts. I'll write it down in the board, and my students will take down the notes, right? And then I will assign homework, and they will do the homework. They will turn in the homework assignments. Then I will grade them. Then I will manually put them the grades in my grade book. So that used to be the case. And when I started teaching at Sam Houston State University, even then I used to do the same. But somewhere around 2007, 2008, we actually started a different way of teaching. I at least did it. So instead of writing in the blackboard, I started using PowerPoint in the classroom. And nowadays, the textbooks comes with very nicely done PowerPoint slides, and they are done by who knows where. Because these publishers nowadays, they outsource their work to different parts of the world. Maybe somebody in India prepared those PowerPoints, very nicely done PowerPoints, which probably I will not be able to prepare myself, right? And then it also comes with the test banks, which are generally very nice test banks. So I take the questions and I upload those test banks into our learning platform, which is Blackboard. And students will do those assignments, and they will submit online, and that will be graded by a software, right? And it automatically sends all the grades to my grade book. And I will go to the class. I will use those PowerPoints which have come from the publisher. So essentially what I am doing in the classroom is I am an assembler. So I am assembling these different parts which have been created in different places. Maybe the PowerPoints were made in India, the homework assignments probably were prepared by somebody in Czech Republic, and the grading software probably was written by somebody in Brazil, right? So all these different parts were produced in different parts, and I am assembling and delivering this lecture in the classroom. So that saves a lot of time of mine. So by saving my time, what I am expected to do? So of course, educational institutions in the West, and of course that will probably soon will happen even in our country, is trying to help us creating all these materials or helping us utilize technology optimally, so that we can have more time to do something which technology cannot do, machine cannot do. So what do we do which cannot be done by machine, or what cannot be done by technology? That is our research, because that is kind of in economics it's called the non-routine cognitive job. So we have to create knowledge, we have to conduct research, we have to create new knowledge so that human society or human civilization can advance, right? So there is a logic there, right? So as a result of these changes, what has happened, my teaching style has changed. Of course, now that I don't write on the board, the students do not see me kind of doing that hard work, right? Writing in the board for 1 hour is a hard work. And when my students do not see me doing the hard work, that used to be a source of inspiration for them, right? That used to be a motivating factor. But now that I don't do that, instead I put the PowerPoints on the board or on the screen, and then I kind of lecture. So my way of motivating them, my way of engaging them, my way of inspiring them, my way of communicating them has changed. So I have changed that way, right? So I have to think constantly. So every class, again, whenever I think about a class, I think as if that is the first time or that is the only time that I'm teaching, so that I can get prepared to do these three things: to motivate, to communicate, and to inspire. Okay. And so that has changed. Now, in between, somewhere around like 2011, I think I also started teaching online, which still I don't enjoy it. I have done it for almost 10 years now. I don't like it. And now with the COVID-19, of course, now the world has changed in a way, right? Overnight, we had to shift everything to online teaching and learning, which some of my students don't like. But then whether we like it or not, this is a crisis situation, we have to do it. Now, when we are not in the same classroom, when the students don't see my body language, I don't see their body language, and we are trying to connect through the video platform, sometimes even that is even not used, because we do it in an asynchronous mode, meaning we kind of upload pre-recorded lecture and they can take a look at their leisure time, or whenever they have time available for themselves, right? And that is, so when I don't see my students, when they don't see my students, so how I motivate, how I communicate, how I inspire. So those are the challenges now we are facing. I mean, it's myself included, but all my colleagues or teachers all around the world, I think they are facing the same challenges, right? So how do, first of all, of course, in the United States, this is an advanced country, so we have this infrastructure for a long period of time. I think most, I would not say 100% teachers are used to this mode, but I would say 50% of the teachers, they are already trained, they know how to do it. Like I did it, I have been doing it for 10 years. But for countries like us, for India, for most teachers, it is a very new environment. It's a very new concept. It's a very new although they use technology, but not to that extent where they can do this. They can motivate, they can communicate, they can inspire, right? But that's why I said it's an art, because you will have to find a way, or we'll have to find a way. And that's what our classes for this semester just started 2 weeks back. And now in one class, I am doing hybrid. It's called a blended model. So one day I teach face-to-face, one day I teach online. But the day I teach face-to-face, some of my students have chosen to be remote meaning they join the class remotely, so through Zoom. And so this is a very weird situation. I'm in this big classroom because the university has required us to maintain social distancing, and therefore in a big classroom which can fit 175 students, there are only 26 students. They sit in 6 feet apart. And then there are some students sitting in their own living room or in their bedroom, and they are watching me. So it's a very unusual, very new environment where I am trying to motivate, I am trying to communicate, at the same time I am trying to inspire, right? Because those are the elements of the art of teaching. So how do we do that? I probably will not be able to give a definitive answer right now. Again, as I said before, my way of motivating, my way of communicating, my way of inspiring may be different from yours. At the same time, they may be equally effective. So the bottom line would be, we'll have to figure it out. Of course, in order to be able to do that, you will have to learn technology, right? And in a way, for a country like India, I think it's a great opportunity, because I always think, and again, let me tell you that I have been researching information and communication technology for more than 20 years. So I know, I have followed this technology for a long period of time. And whenever I have been studying this information and communication technology, I always think that this is a great technology for a country like India, because a lot of things we have not been able to do it, we can do it with this technology. So when you think about educating millions of students, and it is big, we don't have enough schools and universities and colleges to educate these kids. And I think this technology has a great potential. But the challenges for us, for the teachers who will be teaching using the technology, will be how we accomplish what we are supposed to accomplish. With that, I think I almost ran out of time. So I will stop, and I hope at least I have shared whatever I have experienced over the last 20 years, or what I have been thinking about teaching. So I would like to thank Sipajhar College for giving me this opportunity to share with you my thoughts and my experiences. And I look forward to your questions and your comments. You don't have to ask me questions. You can also make comments about whatever I have said. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thought-provoking lessons. And we have lots of questions for you. I will try to pick some of them. May I take, sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, how online education could be helpful for the students of the lower strata of society?
Yes, that's a very good question, and that's also a very challenging situation for all of us. First of all, the students who are from low socioeconomic background, they probably do not have access to the technology or technological gadgets, and that's problematic. At the beginning of this whole pandemic, I wrote an op-ed in one of the national newspapers in India, where I was actually saying that the fact that there is a digital divide, there is unequal access to this technology, that will lead to long-run inequalities in our country. For students coming from a low socioeconomic background, the other problem is the schools or the colleges, they actually satisfy another need of theirs. At home, they do not get much guidance from their parents. So coming to school or coming to colleges, when they talk to their teachers, or for many of these students, the teacher becomes their mentor or guide. And now that they have not been able to come to school, and they are not getting this guidance or mentoring, and as a result, that might have a very negative impact on their education. And again, coming to your question, of course, this is a challenge. I would think that the government will, because government has a role to play in this, I hope they will make access to the internet, universal access to the internet, no charges. It should be the case in 21st century. And of course, how we will provide access for these students to the gadgets, like for example, a phone or a computer, that is something that we have to think about. In fact, a long time ago, Indian government developed certain things which are still there, but they are not operational. Actually, it was a very good model. For example, they established those community computer centers. They had, every district had all kinds of internet-enabled communication systems. Even some villages were linked by the internet. But those systems have not been utilized to their to the best of their capability, and that has been a problem. So yes, that is a problem, that is a challenge. And well, I have some ideas about how we still can do it with whatever we have, but then I think if I start explaining that, it will be it will be another 1 hour. So I would, if you want to discuss, whoever is asking maybe that question, you can always message me via Facebook Messenger or even email me.
Okay, sir, I will send them your email ID. They can.
Yes, you can share my email ID. I'll be happy to discuss, or I will be happy to talk about how we can make this thing.
Yes, sir. There is another question. How will you comprehend the relationship between globalization and emerging trends in education in India?
Well, globalization, of course, now that after the COVID pandemic, so many people are speculating probably this will be a big blow to globalization. Uh, and different countries are talking about being self-reliant, self-sufficient. Even in India, for example, we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, which some people have been interpreting as if we want to be self-sufficient. But the point is, I think we, you like it or not, or you believe it or not, we, at the end of the day, we are a global world or a global village, and where education is one area where global interaction is very, very important. And the fact that now you are you have organized this particular event, right? So I have been able to share my thoughts with you, and I hope that these thoughts are beneficial too. And then in this kind of environment or in this kind of platform, we can definitely exchange ideas. I can teach. In fact, as I am a adjunct faculty at Tezpur University, and I'm thinking I'm actually have been asked to teach a class at Tezpur University remotely from here. So I think there is an opportunity here, right? So we can have global exchange using the technology, and we should take advantage of that. And again, as I said, given the size of our college or school going population, we do not have that many educational institutions. We have only 1,000 universities where we have huge population, right? Huge young population. If you compare it with the United States has more than 5,000 universities, right? So there is a disparity. And even if you look at the universities, except for one or two, other universities are understaffed. There are not too many faculty members. So there's shortage and all kinds of things. So in those contexts, I think it is important that we take advantage of this global interconnectivity when it comes to higher education. And I think in new education policy, there are some provisions where now, for example, US universities or European universities will be able to provide teaching, provide education in India as well. So India will be open to other universities from other countries, which I think is a good thing. Thank you.
Sir, please share your view how to grow a healthy and strong political concept among the disciples despite their strict academic schedule.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Certain things that I have noticed in other countries, particularly in the United States, that I don't see in India, and which I saw to some extent in places like JNU, but not in other places, which I would think that I hope that our colleges and universities, they kind of take those initiatives. Uh, Nowadays, what happens if you bring in a politician to a campus, you are almost immediately branded that you are BJP or you are Congress, you are AZP and all this, right? But that should not be the environment in a college or a university. And when a politician comes to a college, they should not be treated like royals. Again, I mean, I am talking, since I'm talking to the teachers, so teachers should, I think, listen and also tell their students, because they should not be treated, they should be treated like common people, and they should be actually invited regularly, and they should be listened to. For example, what I am suggesting is that it would be very healthy for colleges and universities in, let's say, our part of the country, to invite, let's say you invite Gaurav Gagoi to Sipajhar College, and not for political reason, but to listen to his life philosophy, what he thinks about various, it's not about party, it's about what he thinks about, for example, India's economic growth. And he doesn't have to talk about his party's position. It's as an individual, as a politician who has decided to serve his country, right? Or similarly, you can probably invite uh, Sachin Pilot, or you can invite somebody else. So these are so I think we need to know what their philosophy is. Forget about their party politics. And if we interact enough, I think that will be, and some of our students, good students probably, because we want our good students or good people to go to politics. Then only we can have a very robust, good political system, right? And how do you develop that? It's not just inviting politicians, MLAs, MPs like royals, treat them like royals and listen whatever they have to say, even if it is very party politics. But there should be an open discussion where the students can interact openly. They can ask questions without any fear or without any backlash, right? There should not be any backlash in the college, universities. These are places where everybody should have an open mind and should be able to, so that we can. It's not about our political system. It's also about creating a democratic society where we listen to each other. So I have lots of friends from Assam on my Facebook page, and sometimes when I see their post, not all of the posts, some posts are really good, but some of the posts, when it generally comes to politics, these are like not really a democratic discussion or democratic post, right? So in a democratic society, what do we expect? We expect to have diverse views, diverse opinions. But that doesn't mean that I will go against you or I'll almost like kill you. That should not be. We should be tolerant. And again, that's why I think among the young people, it's a very important part of their learning, because they have to be a very active participant in the democratic process, in the democratic society. They have to be able to promote the democratic values. If we have to do that, we have to do such things. Again, as I said, I think it will be very healthy. So if, like in Assam, there are like 10 or 20 such programs or functions where they invite, irrespective of the party, they invite let's say Kirin Rizuzu. Why cannot we, and let us hear about his philosophy about life, about the society, not about his BJP politics, right? So we should listen, and the students should be able to openly and directly question him, and he should be able to clearly, we should create an environment like that. Again, I mean, I can keep on saying or giving, because when I look at US universities, that's exactly what happens. They invite people and they come like nobody. Like common people, they will walk into the hall and they will interact with the student. They walk out, no security, nothing, no fular mala. So again, I mean, it's an environment that somebody has to create, and I think students are the best people, or the educational institutions are the best place where we can do that. Thank you, thank you. It's a very interesting and very good question.
Sir, can we take another one or two questions?
Yes.
Okay. So, in our education system, as teachers, we prefer to inculcate moral values in students from an early stage of their learning. This is good as well as very important for the society. But as far as I think, in Western education system, they give more importance in inculcating professional or technical skills in the learners from a very early stage. I think he wants to know your view regarding this, sir. But which system will be better for us?
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's a little difficult question in the sense that in the Western universities or educational institutions, yes, we try to teach some of the professional skills, but at the same time, I think the most important focus, at least in last several years, the focus of, let's say, US, since I work here at the US university, so I can say that the focus has been on developing critical thinking skills. And when I say critical thinking skills, we basically, so there have been a lot of changes in this world in the last 20 years, right? So there was a time when we have to use our brain to memorize things. We had to remember things. But nowadays, we don't have to remember things, because in the tip of our fingers, we can, using this small device, we can get access to any knowledge that you want to have. But there are two problems with having access to this particular gadgets, right? So using this gadget, you can have access to any knowledge or any information in the world. But what is the problem? Well, there's so much information nowadays, which is right, which is wrong, or which is the appropriate. That is where the students might have difficulty. And that's where teachers, here we are like gatekeepers. And the second is when I say critical thinking is very important, because when you have information, what do you do with the information? So the students should be able to process that. The students should be able to think it through. And that's why we try to develop the critical thinking skills. And when you say critical thinking, that covers a wide range of things, which includes uh, even your knowledge and your wisdom about the human values as well. So when you talk about the moral studies, well, moral studies generally in a society like United States, morality or moral values comes from their religious affiliation, I think, because here, yeah, many people, they have their own faith, and they get their knowledge or their moral values from their affiliation to their particular faith. But then in the school settings or college setting, particularly college settings, we don't teach those moral values or moral things. But then the critical thinking itself can cover a lot of things which are related to, in general, the human values. So when we teach them how to think, again, there's a difference between teaching how to think and what to think, right? So we generally don't teach what to think. We teach them how to think, so that they can decide what to think, right? And so that's what the focus is. And I don't find anything wrong with teaching moral values, but then there is an extra burden that comes with it. So if you teach moral values, you also have to have that moral character, which, I mean, I can openly say that in many cases, I don't see that in some of, not all, in some of our people back home. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, sir, I am taking the last question.
Yes.
What is your perception of the current educational system in India? Do you think it can compete with or is it par with other educational system in the globe?
I think we have a lot to do about our education system, and we have very talented people, but our education system has not been able to bring out the best in our most talented people. And as a result, so like, let's take the example of some of those IITs, right? So IITs are considered to be the best educational institution in India. And but then, given their importance and given their inputs, the students there who come and get their education in IITs, right? We do not have, we have some success, but not the success to the extent that they are useful to the society. So many of those IITians, they come to the United States. Most of them, not most of them, many of them, they come to the United States, and then all of a sudden they become very productive, or they become very creative, right? For example, now in the world, 3 biggest tech companies, right? They are run by 3 Indians. Microsoft is run by Satya Nadella, then Google is run by Sundar Pichai, and then the other company, well, it's kind of slipping out of my mind. Those are run by Indians, right? But most of them are product of IIT. But did they learn what they are doing right now in IIT? Probably not. They came here, they got education. Then the environment this educational institution or the society as a whole has created, that pushed them to take the lead here. And that is we are kind of, we still have not been able to, or our education system has not been able to create that environment where they can bring out the potential from out of these students. And that is true for all kinds of educational institutions and overall the education system. So we create students, this education system creates, they are very good at certain things. For example, when I would say that our students are probably, those are good students, they are very good in solving mathematics problems without realizing the beauty of mathematics. So that's, I would say that is the difference. And so here, most people will not go to learn mathematics. Those who are really interested, they will go to learn mathematics or physics, but then you will realize that they are the best because they are so clear about everything. So that's the difference, right? So we create, or we train students, our education system, who are good at a lot of things, but then they don't come up at the top when it comes to creativity or innovations, or we can do certain things very mechanically, but we cannot, I'm not saying that there are not exceptions, but there are exceptions, but then for majority of the students, that's what happens with our education system. So there are lots to do with our education system, and we need to do, because we are a young country where there are a lot of students or people in that age group who can go to the educational institution. So thank you for asking that question. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for clearing the doubts of the participants. I hope now they have clear view regarding their doubts.
Thank you.
Now we are proceeding towards the end of the webinar, and I would like to request Dr. Dipajyoti Soikia, Head of the Department of Zoology, Sipajhar College, to offer vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Dipajyoti Soikia.
Thank you, Mrs. Mondo. First of all, I would like to offer my sincere gratitude to our Honorable Principal Sir for allowing us to organize this webinar. From the organizer and from the members, all the members of Sipajhar College, I would like to offer my sincere gratitude to the Honorable Speaker, sir, for giving his valuable time in spite of his very busy schedule. Thank you, sir. I am thankful to the participants without whom there would not be a seminar, a webinar this day. So thank you all. I would like to offer my thankfulness to all the members of our college for their moral support and encouragement. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the technical persons behind this webinar, uh, especially English department for helping us in many ways. Uh, Rezia Baido for her sincere efforts day and night, and all the members associated with this webinar. Thank you all. Now, I would like to announce the end of this webinar. Happy Teachers Day to all. Happy Teachers Day, Nath sir. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to
Thank you
Mr.
all.
Shweta.
So much.
Thank you all. Now we can conclude the webinar, and I again wish you all a very happy Teachers Day. Thank you, Nath sir, for your
Thank
valuable
you.
time. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Happy Teachers Day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.